Hi there, I'm Tom from What Mountain Bike and this is Matt from MBUK. We signed up to a race recently, a little bit different to the normal cross-country or enduro race. It was 150 kilometres in the Arctic Circle on fat bikes. The race is called the Rovaniemi 150, Rovaniemi being the capital of Lapland up in Finland. So back in April when Matt sauntered over to my desk and said, do you fancy doing a little race over in Finland? I didn't really know anything about it. Matt did, and slowly over the course of the next sort of 8 or 9 months, details kind of emerged. So Matt, what did I not know when I signed up to this race?
Well, you didn't know a lot by the sound of it, as I had to run you through bit by bit over the months as to what it would actually involve. It involves cycling through conditions of up to minus 35 degrees. Mm-hmm. It involves deep snow. It involves riding on lakes and rivers, right. And there's the added danger of the local wildlife, such as wolverines, bears, elk, moose, moomins.
So for anyone not quite acquainted, what is a moomin?
Well, a moomin is a small hippo-type creature, and when you've been cycling for 24 hours with no sleep and very little food, it's quite easy to see these small native creatures in the woods running around and making strange noises like they may have done on the documentary from the 80s.
The cartoon documentary?
Yes, yeah. The cartoon documentary. Okay.
So with this sort of 8 months of slowly being drip-fed little bits of information about what I'd actually signed up to, I started getting a little bit worried, especially as it came sort of December, early January, when I realised I'd done no training at all for 150k in the Arctic. Matt, on the other hand, knew all this all along, and you've been doing some training, hadn't you?
Well, by training, I had modified my daily commute into work, which is just shy of 40k. And instead of doing my daily commute on a sensible bike, like a road bike with skinny tyres, I decided to do my daily commute on my Surly ice cream truck Ops with 4-inch tyres, running at a low pressure for extra traction and resistance, and spent about 4 months grinding away the miles to try and get as fit as possible. And my previous race experience involves probably half a race for the Steve Warland Memorial Cup at Bristol Bike Fest, which involves drinking half a cider on each lap round. And sadly, there was no cider in Lapland.
There wasn't, no. I went for the sort of the more ignorance is bliss type of approach. Didn't really think about it too much other than being slightly worried about my lack of training. In contrast to my training, we're actually very well prepared in terms of bikes. I had a Sama Shaman and Matt had his MBUK long-term bike. So what did you have and what did you change on your bike?
For this race, I decided it needed a couple of minor tweaks just to make it ready for a long distance 150k cross-country event. The main ones are the drivetrain, which I've changed from the stock SLX with micro shift thumb shifters to a grip shift setup using SRAM's XO group set. That means that when my hands are in my pogies, which are the large muff devices for keeping your hands warm in the cold, there's not too much in the way poking out or cables which can interfere. Also when you're using big gloves, they're much more versatile and usable in that scenario.
And the handlebars, what did you change with those then?
So with the handlebars, I went from the standard salsa bar which comes with it, and I've changed it to the Answer 2020 Enduro race bar. The bar's a bit more swept, isn't it? So instead of having your hands like that, your hands are positioned like that, which is, for less technical riding, a more natural position. Think of like an old shopper bike, for example. They have those really swept back bars. Just gives a nice sort of comfortable wrist position. There's a 20-degree rise and 20-degree back sweep, so it puts your hands in a much more natural position as they'd normally fall. The bars are carbon, which will help prevent cold seeping through the frame and into my gloves and into my hands. Over 150 kilometres, it should mean that I'm a lot more comfortable. So while you had sort of more of a trail-orientated fat bike, when Matt came and said that we're going to do a 150k race, I'm not going to do a 150k race unless I've got a race bike. You know, it's quite a long way. Fortunately, Ison Distribution stepped in and provided the Sama Shaman, which is their new sort of fat bike brand which they're distributing. It's a lightweight carbon frame and fork, and it was built up with their own wheels as well, which come with an 80mm wide carbon rim. So the bike itself, without all the luggage on, is not much heavier than, you know, a regular trail hardtail. It comes in the range of sort of 23, 24 pounds, even with tubes in the big sort of 4-inch Surly Nate tyres. So it's actually quite an agile, racy, fast fat bike, if such a thing can exist. Given that it had quite a high-end carbon frame and fork,
and wheel set. Obviously the rest of the build's sort of been built to sort of match that spec. So we've got rental bar and stem, a genetic seat post, and the full SRAM XX1 group set with the fat bike cranks. The other interesting bit of kit we've got on there is some nuke-proof electron pedals, which are plastic bodied so they don't sort of transmit too much cold from the pedals to the feet, which a metal one can do in really low temperatures. We spent quite a long time out in the Arctic Circle on bikes. You can't go out there with just your regular riding kit, obviously. So what did we have to take and how did we carry it, Matt?
To enter the race, there's a mandatory kit list, which includes some pretty bulky items, such as a winter sleeping bag, which needs to be tested down to -35 degrees Celsius, sleeping mats, and a few other smaller bits and pieces. For long distance, you don't want to be carrying any of that on your back or on your person, so we managed to get our bikes kitted out very kindly by Porcelain Rocket, who provided us with frame bags, saddle bags, handlebar rolls, and Salsa Anything cage pouches for the front forks. That means that all of the weight of everything you're carrying is distributed evenly around the bike, keeping the centre of gravity low and keeping it balanced so that when you're riding, the effect isn't massively noticeable.
I guess also not having such weight on your back means that you don't get quite so sweaty, which in cold conditions can be a bit of a problem as well.
Exactly, and 150k is a very long way to ride. Keeping your temperature low and not sweating in freezing conditions is essential, otherwise you're running a risk of hypothermia if you stop. The only thing that we actually carried on our backs were very small camelbacks, just to get us from checkpoint to checkpoint, and keeping that on our body as well meant that they were less likely to freeze.
Go Outdoors provided us with a lot of the clothing from the likes of Rab, Montaigne and Northridge. So down on my feet I used the Scarpa Manta Pro GTX boot. It's a mid-weight winter mountaineering boot, ideal for ice climbing and winter hill walking and things like that. The reason why I went for this boot is because it's got a nice stiff sole, so it's good for pedalling. There's plenty of room in the toe box so you can wiggle your toes and keep them nice and warm. And there's that little bit of insulation as well, which stops things getting too cold. So they were great on the feet. We had something else down there as well though.
Yeah, so to tie in with the boots that we were wearing, the most essential piece of kit we had were these alpine gaiters from Rab, really essential for keeping snow out of your boots. So if you're not familiar with how gaiters work, they wrap around the base of your leg, they attach onto the boot, and they provide a barrier up to your knee, which when you're pushing through 2-3 foot deep snow is pretty useful.
It stops sort of all the snow getting into the top of the boot, melting with the warmth of your feet and then getting wet feet. So you could effectively walk through that deep snow and keep your feet warm and dry.
Oh, I just lost my leg down the hole.
So if we were going to be spending up to 24 hours out on the race, in the Arctic Circle that means you've got about 16 hours of darkness in early mid-February. So we had these Petzl Ultra Rush belt head torches with an external battery, and that's really important in cold races. If a battery gets cold, its battery life decreases, and so being on the end of a long cable meant we could keep it inside our clothing, which keeps it warm, extending the battery life. And it's very, very bright. So you were out for around 24 hours for the race?
Yep, so I was out a lot longer than Tom, which meant I saw the whole of the finish night time. And I made full use of the battery with the Petzl head torch using various different modes, but the majority of which was on the lowest setting. It provided ample light for me to get round with no problems at all.
We could get away with that lowest setting because the reflectivity of the snow meant that we didn't need actually that many lumens being pumped out by the head torch.
It was actually really surprising how much light you could get from the lowest setting in those conditions, because the snow is really quite reflective. If you're interested in finding out any more information about the kit we've used, please check out the link in the video description below for full kit lists and a breakdown of exactly what we took with us.
And if you want to see how we did in the race, make sure you don't miss part 2.
My motto will never forgive you if I die. I have told him. Oh, it's my fault. Okay. I'll try not to stack it in front of all these people now.